Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. So in this video we're going to do a recap of season 2. My last video I did a recap of season 1 of Let's Play. If there's any type of this style of videos that you would like for any other webtoons, make sure you put them in the comments. I'm just doing a continuation of season 2 because it makes sense because the pictures were already on my wall. So let's get right into the video. So how we left off is that Marshall fainted in front of Sam and Charles at their apartment block. What then happened is that they called 911. Link came as a responder because if you remember, Link is like a paramedic, and then Link takes him to the hospital. Sam begs Charles to kind of take her to the hospital, and he in his thinking was like, the way this baby's like clutching onto my arm, it's kind of intimate, I can't lie. But they eventually do get to the hospital, and Charles actually calls Ava. Now if you remember from my last video, Ava is Marshall's older sister, but she is also Charles's, I don't even know what they are, I don't even know what to call them, but they're intimate. Ava gets to the hospital. It turns out that Marshall had symptoms similar to that of like a heart attack, and I would love to know if it was just a coincidence, the specific like condition that Mongi gave him. I would love to know if it's because he's half Japanese or if that was just coincidence. I would love to know. Ava has a really tender moment with Marshall, who I believe at this point is still unconscious. It's clear to see that beneath her kind of tough exterior, because she was introduced to be a little bit more abrasive, she definitely has a soft center and she has such a soft spot for her younger brother. There's also a moment in which Sam is feeling a little bit guilty because she's thinking to herself she was horrible to him when they first met, and obviously he was feeling guilty about, you know, playing her game wrongly. Probably ran himself sick because he was busy trying to play her game, which is true to an extent. But I also think there was a little bit of disconnect just because I felt like a lot of weight was put into her words of like, oh, I was so horrible when we first met. After that first moment when they met, they were perfectly fine. I do believe that there was a hiccup around like, oh, I hope you didn't pay my rent, that type of situation. But other than that, they were cool. In fact, I would go as far as to say that Sam's friends, specifically Link and Angela, were worse to Marshall and Sam was to Marshall. I think there was a nugget of something that could have been explored, because in her lamenting to his unconscious body about how guilty she feels, she was like, oh, I obviously don't know you that well, and but even despite knowing that you're a good person, I still treated you horribly. There was a nugget of something that could have been explored that was interesting to me. It was that kind of parasocial relationship between VTuber and between an audience. There's just something there. There's something delicious there that could have been explored. I understand why it possibly couldn't be explored because of power imbalance, but I feel like, hey, if we talk about power imbalances, I don't know. I feel like, so I don't know. I just feel like they made Sam to be like a perfect viewer. I just feel like that would have been interesting. At the end of this chapter, Marshall wakes up, and then in the next chapter we get Charles apologizing to Ava. If you remember in the last video, I explained how Charles kind of lured Ava under the guise of a kiss, wrenched her face to the side really hard, then called her a bitch. He apologizes for calling her a bitch, and it is such a weak ass apology on two separate fronts. It's very weak. We won't even get to the content of the apology itself. We'll get into that later. What annoyed me the first time around was that he doesn't apologize for like manhandling her, because apparently she wanted it, which is a crazy buzz phrase to use in this climate, that she wanted it. He was like, oh, you were provoking me. And I feel like it's a crazy time to use that phrase, because they were sparring. I feel like in a sparring session between athletes, like it makes sense to try and goad your opponent. So I just thought that was crazy, and the fact that Mongi used that in this climate that we're in is incredibly insane. The second reason why I was annoyed with that apology, and this may be semantics, this is incredibly TT opinion based, you may not agree with me, it may just be a thing about different languages and different ways in which people treat each other. So maybe this is just me, put my hands up. But he didn't say I'm sorry. After all the things he said, oh, I shouldn't have called you a bitch, and then he says, please accept my apology. There was no apology in the aforementioned words. I just thought that was crazy. I guess it depends on individual people. If you can accept, please accept my apology as an apology without someone first saying I am sorry, please accept my apology, then that's fine. Me personally, I want to hear, I'm sorry for doing this, please accept my apology. Personally, again, that's very me. That's very me focused. And another thing that happens is that Ava is kind of misogynistic to the other woman that Charles is sleeping with. I don't know if I mentioned her too much, but she's the woman that works in the same building that Charles and Sam working. Her name is Rose, I think. Ava was just being misogynistic to her, and I thought that was just a crazy choice. Sam calls Monica, and the babe is pissed because she had been telling Marshall to slow down. She had been telling him to take a rest, take a beat. He just didn't want to listen. Also, Sam tries to make Charles jealous with Link for some odd reason, and it's just so weird. It's just so weird. So after that, Monica gets there. Ava didn't know who Monica was because Marshall didn't tell his family that he was dating. Marshall never spoke about her, and vice versa. Monica didn't even know about Ava. He didn't know about his sister either. Ava proceeded to then slut shame Monica. I was like, girl, you have no leg to stand on. You're slut shaming Monica. Meanwhile, you are in a deviant relationship with this Charles, man. You are in a taboo relationship with him. He doesn't claim you as girlfriend. Them, at least, they are speaking for each other. They are girlfriend, boyfriend in a very traditional sense. You are in a non-traditional relationship with a man, and you're slut shaming Monica? What? Anyway, again, another weird choice for Monkey. They argued a little bit, and I guess the imagery from there was that they're both very, very strong personalities. Charles also sexualized them in that moment. Cool, great, fantastic. Link and Sam go out to get something to eat. So after they get something to eat, I think this was, when they were in the car, they were sitting down and they were talking, blah, blah. And they came to a realization that, what, I think we are better off as friends. This is a very nice way of putting how everything came down. If I'll probably put a link. Maybe I'll just put it in like one of the corners of this video. In my Let's Play Shenanigans video, one of the shenanigans was the outbreak and the outcry that happened when Link said that he didn't find her attractive. They realized that, what, we're better off as friends. And then Sam goes up to her apartment and she's having a woe is me. Maybe if I was a blonde white woman instead of a brunette white woman, people would actually find me attractive. It was just so boring. Marshall has a bad dream as well in this chapter. Okay, so in the next chapter, when Marshall wakes up, Monica really lays into him. First thing, she had been on his case about not stressing himself out. And another reason why she was upset is because, like, oh my gosh, your family doesn't even know about me. It must mean that you're ashamed about me. He kind of like tells her that that's not the case, that his family is actually just really, really messed up. He doesn't even want them to like cross paths in that way. Also in this episode, Charles is trying to buck up Sam's confidence to go to like a meeting with a client. After much duress from Charles, she goes to the meeting. She speaks up during the meeting. It looks at first that Charles is upset about her speaking up. It turns out Charles wasn't actually upset that Sam spoke up during the meeting because it allowed their client to kind of explore his options during the deal. And following that, Sam also starts to kind of see Charles in a romantic way, hence why I have moved the green string. The green string used to be here connecting Link and Sam, but now I've moved it over to Charles and Sam. Back with Marshall and Monica, the doctor is telling them that like he absolutely cannot have any kind of stress. He cannot have any physical activity, including the bedtime tango. He's also feeling a little bit insecure because he believes that the only thing that he's good for Monica is that kind of intimacy. And she's like, bro, I like you for you. Sam tells her friends, I believe it was Vicky and Angela, that her and Link are going to stay friends. She also told them that Link said that he doesn't find her attractive. Angela got incredibly angry after that. Following what we know about their relationship and how she's always there to stand up for Sam, she actually went in to go and confront Link, and she was about to get really, really physical with him. She didn't end up doing it, and Vicky actually came and intervened, and she made Angela apologize to Link, and they were all good after that. There's the implication in the drawings that he actually enjoyed at least the physical aspect of their altercation, in the sense that she had kind of like done like this to him, but no green line for us just yet. Okay, so in the next chapter, Charles calls in sick from work, and when Sam calls to check up on him, it turns out that he's not actually sick, he's just tired because he was up playing her game. So eventually ends up finishing the game in like the chapter after this chapter. Next, Monica calls on Sam to come to the hospital because she believes it will do Marshall some good. When Sam gets there, Monica is also telling her to kind of buck up her confidence and that she would be glad to kind of do like a makeover for Sam as well, because if you remember, Monica is like a beauty YouTuber as well. When Marshall eventually wakes up, they talk a lot about her prototype for like the new game that she's developing. They really get drawn in, they get really sucked in talking about the game. So after that, Ava goes to see Marshall in the hospital. There's also, I can't remember what the words were exactly, but Ava seemed to know who Sam was, and I can't remember what the relationship there was. I think Sam's dad is like a client or something, I don't even know, and I don't think that ever got fleshed out, at least not in this season. She goes to go and see Marshall. We learned that Marshall flunked out of law school. We also learned that he had some previous problems with alcohol. I think he also did like a stint in rehab. We also learned that there's like a family rift in Marshall and Ava's family, and we get the sense that his dad, or their dad, is kind of like the overbearing type of father. We also get another touching moment between Marshall and Ava. After that, when Monica comes back to the hospital, Ava is being misogynistic to Monica. Again, what's new? I don't, very weird choice. Marshall is inspired to draw from his conversation with Sam. If you're one of those people who you don't like cringe, this season might not be for you. This specific chapter is just more of Charles trying to buck up Sam's confidence. In the chapter after that, Sam and Charles are going out for dinner. Monica gives her some more like advice as well. She's telling her, look, keep your confidence up, dress well, enjoy the night, relax, those types of things. At the dinner that they're having, Sam is wondering why Charles still calls her Miss Young instead of calling her by her name Sam. It turns out that he just has some personal problems with her name Sam and instead wants to call her Samara, which is her full name. Fine, whatever. Meanwhile, Charles is wondering why Sam thinks that she's ugly. In the next chapter, Charles is telling her that he absolutely loved playing her game. He really enjoyed it. In playing the game, we also learned that Charles has some wariness surrounding marriage. And after the dinner, he just takes her home. Marshall goes to Vicky's yoga studio. It's the only physical activity that he's kind of been cleared to do by his doctor. At the studio, he sees more of Sam's friends. So he sees Olivia, that little 12-year-old, and he also sees Abe as well. They were kind of cold to him at first, but then they kind of softened towards him. I think Abe was kind of joking for the most part anyway. Next episode, it's just more Sam and Charles. Turns out that she had actually wanted him to come inside her flat when he had dropped her off after their dinner. There's a lot of blushing there. In the next chapter, we're back in the yoga studio with Marshall. Marshall has this whole spiel. I don't know why Mongi had this whole thing about Marshall saying about how he's half Japanese, how he's never had anime powers. Japanese people tap in. Is this cringe? Let me know. When they finish up yoga, Abe kind of notices that Vicky had like a very physical reaction to the troubles that Marshall had. I believe she started crying. So seeing that, he was like, okay, you know what, Marshall, do you want to go out for lunch? He and Marshall go out for lunch. Meanwhile, Marshall's friends, who are Dean and Colin, they come to visit. They're kind of lost in their apartment, and they run into Sam because they didn't know which flat in the apartment block was his. So Marshall tells Sam that he's going to email her, his gameplay of her game. He also tells her that he has to kind of take a break from YouTube or from playing games because it's very stressful on him, and the most trending games are the ones that are more like scary and it won't be good for his heart. So she's like, you know what, why don't you just upload the gameplay of my game? It's not like anything worse can happen. The next episode is literally just Charles worrying about Sam because after she left work, she didn't like text him back to be like, hey, I'm back at home. And that's basically the entire episode. He also planned like spicy time with the babe that works in the same building. Next chapter, Marshall is talking to his friends and he's lamenting on how he doesn't think he's good enough for Monica and how he thinks that he's kind of like dragging her down, that she fell in love with Marshall, the funny, charming, charismatic entertainer, and when he's depressed, he's Ben Lawson, which is like his real name. It feels like he kind of Trojan horsed her into a relationship. He was like, I'm dragging her into the dark when she's meant for the spotlight. And Mongi, You know, I don't like to give you anything, but you ate that one little thing.
You're not that bitch or nothing, but you still ate that little one. That little one thing. You ate that one thing.
You tried there. So Monica overheard this entire convo, but Marshall and his friends don't know that she overheard them talking. Sam eventually gets back to Charles and is like, yeah, I got back home safe. And it turns out that Charles actually rescheduled like his thing with the woman that works in the same building as the two of them to talk on the phone with Sam. The next chapter, it's really just like Sam dressing up nice for Charles. It's whatever. They're also kind of looking over her proposal. There was just a little funny thing I thought which was so funny, because I remember in this episode Sam had gone over to like the cafe where Link and Dee works at, and I think she had run into Angela and Vicky there as well. Anyway, they frequent there, and she was getting coffee for her and for Charles. And I remember Angela being like, he's making you get coffee, that's not cool. She was like, no, he's not making me get coffee, I just owe him. He had gotten her a drink when they went to dinner. And I just remember thinking, but like in the first season he used to make you get coffee. Maybe not like go outside to fetch coffee, but like he used to make you like boil the coffee. I just thought that was interesting. After that, Charles, after listening to like her proposal and he gave her feedback on that proposal, he's like, you know what, you're going to do proposal, not me. She freaks out from hearing this. She damn near passes out. She's her like inhaler pump. She's not for that at all. She just doesn't want to present it, and Charles agrees not to make her do it. Marshall ends up uploading the gameplay of Sam's game. He also ends up sketching a little bit with Sam's new game in mind. He goes to get coffee. He also chats a little bit to Link, and Link is lamenting about how he's having a problem with a friend. We get the sense that that friend is actually Angela. Marshall also helps Link and Dee to do a drawing on like the chalkboard for the cafe, and this episode explored Marshall drawing. I think we got as far back as season 1 when Sam was helping out Marshall. We knew that okay, he likes to draw, that's kind of a little bit of a hobby for him, like he never explored it to like a professional state. So this episode really kind of explored that, and I think that if we had gotten more episodes, more seasons of this webtoon, I think conclusion we would have had is that maybe we would have seen Marshall being Sam's artist for her new game, seeing as the friend that she had used for her first game doesn't take art commissions anymore. So Vicky gives Angela a good talking to about ignoring Link in the name of Sam, because at the end of the day, Link had apologized. Sam wasn't even that into him, and honestly, it's not that deep. It's really not that deep. The whole situation, this whole talking to, did piss off a few fans. I spoke about it a little bit in my shenanigans video, so if you want my opinions about it, you can go watch that video. But essentially, fans felt like they were being talked to, like Mongi was kind of chastising them. But yeah, at the end of it, Angela apologized to Link. So Sam runs into Marshall at the park. They talk a little bit. They're lamenting about how things used to be so much easier and so much less complicated when they were younger, and they ended up playing a video game that they both used to play when they were younger, just because they're kind of hooked up on nostalgia at this point and feeling like things are so complicated now that they're adults. So at the office, Sam's dad goes and collapses on like the office floor because his wife is doing an ad in Hawaii. He's like, gosh, she'll be in a bikini, as if she couldn't be in a bikini anywhere. Just man baby things, as he is usually wont to do. Charles is like, pull yourself together. In the next episode, Sam's like, I think that when you lied to my dad, you're kind of manipulating him, because Charles had taken a picture of Sam's dad while he was like crying on the floor. He threatened to send that picture to Sam's mom. He never even had Sam's mom's like phone number. She was like, I think that when you lie like that, you're manipulating my dad. Like, you don't want to talk, because when you're out here whimpering and shaking like a leaf, that's manipulative. I personally think that we're grasping for straws there with that kind of argument. In the next chapter, Sam learns that Charles used to have a wife and that he is now divorced, and that she probably also cheated on him. It also ties into like his apprehension with marriage, and why, you know, in the comic or in the webtoon there's always like imagery with rings and broken rings when we see his POV. In the next chapter, Charles and Sam's dad, they have a drink, and Sam's dad talks about why he's so overprotective about his family, about Sam. It kind of stems from the fact that like Sam's mom had a lot of miscarriages, and when Sam was going to be born, she was actually born prematurely, and it was a very scary birthing process. He kind of feels responsible for not being there. As a result, he's very overprotective over the two of them. Okay, so in this next chapter, Marshall and Monica break up. It's bittersweet in the sense that like I know why they broke up. It makes sense for them to break up, but they are technically my two favorite characters. So it's like, damn. Damn. I feel like this is perhaps the only well-written aspect of this entire webtoon. This relationship, both of them separately and like their relationship together, in my opinion. It was a really interesting conversation. Monica had said that they needed to get to know each other as friends and they needed to get to know each other beneath their online personas. The next chapter, Sam kind of dresses provocatively. Cleavage is showing. She wants to talk to Charles. Charles keeps saying no. Her dad's like, oh my god, my adult daughter has boobs. Like, cleavage, oh my god. After that, Charles takes Sam's dad to the airport. He's arranged it all so that Sam's dad can go to Hawaii with Sam's mom. Sam also asks Umed if he knew Charles used to be married. Umed said yes, but that was because Charles had told him at like a work New Year's party when Charles was very much drunk. He said that Charles got married to his wife when he was like 18, so very, very young. And that Charles' wife cheated on him with his best friend. In this next chapter, guys, I almost burst out laughing because Sam and Charles, they're talking to each other and they have this like, oh my god, your hands are so much bigger than mine. Yeah, your hands are so small. And they're like holding each other's hand and I'm like, oh my god. I feel like Ali Hazelwood and Mongi would be best friends. I feel like, I don't know, if you know, you know. In this chapter, they do a whole lot of like apologizing to each other. When I say these people apologize to each other, I swear it makes up more than 90% of their convo. To the point where sometimes when I read it, I'm like, what are we even talking about? I don't know how to explain it, but it's like, what are the threads of the conversation? Because it feels like most of it is being bogged down by like apology. I understand why it's there to make it seem like it's a healthy relationship. Sometimes I would be like, I feel like the conflict was nonsensical to even start with, if that makes sense. At this point, and this is chapter 123, we're nearly to the end of this season. It's clear that there's meant to be some kind of chemistry between Charles and Sam. I don't know about that personally, but the way that it's drawn, the way that the text is, there's meant to be chemistry. In chapter 124, they kiss at the office. Cool, calm, cool. I do remember when they were in the parking lot in the last season, there was a talk about what's appropriate and what's not. I don't know. I feel like if we're going to go down this route, maybe we shouldn't have even put that there. Just a thought. So in the next chapter, Marshall tells his friends, Dean and Colin, what happened about his breakup with Monica. Marshall is also wondering what to do with his life. He's thinking to himself, it's not like YouTube is going to last forever. What do I want to do with my life? If I still continued with law, if I didn't flunk out with law, I probably would have been in the family business. What do I want to do with my life? Etc, etc. Link is struggling to make ends meet and his little brother Dallas is being so annoying. It's heavily assumed that his little brother Dallas has been the one robbing like the toilet paper from the cafe that Link and Dee works at. In the next chapter, someone takes a picture of Marshall. It's touched on a little bit more in the next season, but it's meant to be kind of threatening. Like, it's like a professional camera. It's not like a fan taking a picture of Marshall. It's like someone's like stalking, that kind of sense. Someone takes a picture of Marshall. Sam and Charles go to a restaurant and they are kind of like discussing the future of their relationship. Charles takes a call and he's being offered a very high-paying vice president of operations job in London. I don't know if you guys watch like Risa Tisa, Who the F Did I Marry? But like when I heard VP of operations, I was like, oh my god, Legion. If you haven't watched that, go watch it. It was just so much. It was a great time. Very entertaining. Let me not compare. Also in this chapter, Sam orders alcohol without knowing and she gets drunk and Charles tries to get her out of there because somehow Sam's older brother is there with his girlfriend, so he tries to like get her back home without them finding out. Okay, so in the last chapter, Charles ends up taking Sam to his flat to kind of sleep off the effects of the alcohol because it was closer to the restaurant that they were in. Sam is kind of like a nuisance drunk, so he couldn't like drive safely while she was there drunk because she's very like obtrusive. At his flat during the nighttime, she initiates things while she's still kind of drunk, and that's how season 2 basically ends. Honestly, I'm just so happy that I've gotten it to be under an hour. For my last video, what I uploaded was 60 minutes, but what I filmed was literally, guys, was like 90 minutes. I said a feature film. What am I talking about for 90 minutes? So I'm just glad we're on 52 minutes now. Very happy. Like, that isn't by mistake. This is a very much shorter season, because the last season was about like 75 episodes. This one was just like 52. If you don't like Sam and Charles, this is going to be a season that is going to be annoying, but thankfully it's not as long as the last season, so you can just kind of slog through, you can bear through. It's a very Sam and Charles heavy season. There's still some weird things concerning privilege somewhere in this season, like even in that previous chapter, the one that I talked about very recently, about how he kind of learned that like it's possible his younger brother is the one stealing toilet paper. Things are hard. Things are hard for this boy. Things are hard for this boy. You know that sound where it's like a single mom who works 2 jobs? That's him. That's basically him. It's like he's a paramedic. He's also like working at the cafe. Like he has to do a lot of things. There's some concerning things about privilege in this season, and the fact that it's never really talked about in that sense, which I understand. It's just in the way that this babe, again, like I said in my last video, it's just in the way that things revolve around her, which is fine because she's the main character, but like her privilege is never brought up in relation to things. So when we're painting her as like, oh, this meek little girl, it's like, I understand where you're coming from, but like things are hard for this guy. There's also some weird things concerning like misogyny lights, or just full-blown misogyny in this season, you know, with Ava specifically. Ava talking about Monica, Ava talking about that Rose woman. They're just, you know, there's some misogynistic things. And I think even the choices, I understand that the misogyny is very much intentional. It's not meant to be glorified. It's not meant to be glossed over. It's not meant to be put on a pedestal. Like, she looks bad for it. Monica doesn't look bad for like the hate Ava is spewing on her, if that makes sense. So I understand that was an intentional choice by Mongi, and I can give her that. But I do think that the choices that Mongi makes kind of reveals like a deeper train of thought, which I think is a little bit concerning. I think that all the women that Charles has been in his orbit, there's Ava there who's like the stereotypically, she's very out there, she's very brash. He called her unladylike, he called her a bitch. She's not a wallflower by any means. And then you get Rose, she had Botox done and everything, and I think she even like insulted her about that, like having Botox done. Monica, while Monica is not like in affection for Charles, she's in affection for Marshall, who we believe is probably, if this series had continued, would have been a love interest. But I just think it's so interesting that like the love interest that we get, the women who are standing in the way, and of course I do not count Angela because she was never in the way to start with. Angela only started after Link and then broke it off. So again, it still proves my theory that the women who are standing in the way, her and that Rose woman, who are standing in the way of these potential 2 love interests, they're kind of characterized in a way that's like meant to demonize certain characteristics, and those characteristics happen to be things that are demonized in like femininity anyway. So I just thought that that was so interesting, because the ideal woman by social standards, I mean, she has a boob job, right? Monica has a boob job, which I thought was just an interesting choice, because she's meant to have huge boobs. Sam is meant to have huge boobs in this webtoon, but she obviously doesn't have a boob job. She doesn't, you know. So I thought that was interesting, and she obviously loves makeup and things like that. And then we have her, who's like meant to be kind of like brash. The ideal woman is not brash, she's soft-spoken. She's not like that. So I just thought that was interesting choices. Like, while I don't think that Mongi intended to like demonize those attributes, I just thought that the women who stand in the way of like their affections from Sam, I just thought it's interesting that they are giving those kinds of attributes, and Sam in comparison isn't. I just thought that was interesting. I just thought that was an interesting choice. I do think that there were some interesting things. Of course, like I said, I like Marshall, I like Monica still. I also thought that there were some things that could be developed more. I thought that parasocial, if we had gotten a parasocial thing, a parasocial little nugget between Marshall and him, like more like there, I thought that would have been so interesting. That would have been such an interesting to dive into. But again, I like Monica, I like Marshall, they're good for me. But yes, that's basically it for this video. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, let me know what other types of videos you want, and yeah, that's basically it. Bye.